Okay, this is our daily study of Pirkei Avot, the Mishnah Ethics of the Fathers, in honor of those who have yard site for tonight, the 18th of Av, Goldie Brown, Marilyn Gallus, Esther Levine, Dorothy Organ, Sarah Rashbaum, and Helen Spector. May their memory be for a blessing. A link to the text of the Mishnah will be in the first comment below. Chapter 5, Mishnah 21, Hu Haya Omer, he used to say. Now, usually when the Mishnah says he used to say, you have to refer back to the previous Mishnah, because it's the author of that one. The author of the previous Mishnah is Yehuda ben Tema. However, the commentary that Tosfos Yom Tov quotes opinions that this Mishnah is actually out of order. We saw at the end of last Mishnah, the last Mishnah was apparently used to be the end of all of Pirkei Avot, and the last three Mishnahs of chapter 5 were tacked on, and then an entire new chapter, chapter 6, were tacked on. So basically, this Mishnah is out of order, and the author of this Mishnah is actually Shmuel HaKatan. Okay, just an interesting academic point. So this is Shmuel HaKatan. He used to say, what a beautiful classic Mishnah about the course of one's life and the milestones that one reaches from a religious perspective. Ben chamesh shanim lamikra, ben eser lamishna, ben shlosh esrei lamitzvos, ben chamesh esrei latalmud, ben shmona esrei lachuppah, ben esrim lirdof, ben shloshim lakoach, ben arba'im labina, ben chamishim la'etza, ben shishim lazikna, ben shivim laseva, ben shmonim lagvura, ben tishim lashuach, ben mea ki'ilu mesa avaru vatel min ha'olam. This is very good fodder for rabbis such as myself at birthday parties when people reach certain milestones. To quote, as we'll see, at the age of 5, one is ripe for Bible. Okay, so and there have always been schools that follow this, to the T. Interestingly, even the most ultra-Orthodox schools don't always follow this to a T, because it's seen as advice, general advice. It's not really halacha, Jewish law, but here it's saying that when you're 5, you should start studying the Torah. The commentaries point out that it doesn't say in this Mishnah you need a couple years before studying Torah to know Hebrew. So it's actually, there are other sources that say at 3 years old you should actually be learning the Hebrew alphabet already. That by 5 you're ready to learn the Torah in its original language in Hebrew. There are some schools where the kids might already start studying Torah itself at like 3, or I mean, it's not prohibited to start studying earlier than this, or they might wait till 6. But all right, it's generally saying at 5 you should really start studying Torah. Most schools nowadays, like my son Ari's preschool, I think, are teaching them basic Torah stories before. But maybe this means actually the words inside. At 10, you should start studying the Mishnah, which is what we're studying now. Okay, the Mishnah is the oral tradition, all the statements of the rabbis, like Pirkei Avot itself. 13 is the age of mitzvahs. This is the idea of the bar mitzvah, at least for a boy. The Talmud clarifies that for a girl, the age of bat mitzvah is 12, because girls are more mature than boys are, so they become, young adults 1 year earlier. But this Mishnah is taught from a male perspective, so at 13, you have to start observing the mitzvahs. Okay, and that's just a tradition. It doesn't say that anywhere in the written Torah. This is an oral tradition that we have. 13 for boys, 12 for girls. At 15 for Talmud. So this is interesting. The commentaries point out this statement itself is in the Mishnah. The Talmud is the commentary on the Mishnah. There was actually no Talmud yet at this point. But the word Talmud itself always meant the in-depth study of the Mishnah, interestingly enough. What we call the Talmud was really two Talmuds. There's the Babylonian Talmud and the Jerusalem Talmud. Babylonian became the main one. Babylonian Talmud is so massive that if you study one page a day, and one page means both sides of the page, you'll finish in 7.5 years, and it takes about an hour to really study a page, at least. So, but anyway, but the mean is to study the oral Torah in depth. That's what the word Talmud means in the abstract sense. So at 15, you should really start doing that. At 18, for the marriage canopy. Well, that'll scare a lot of, only Hasidic Jews still keep this. They generally get married at 18. But you could apply this loosely nowadays, that maybe at 18 you should start thinking of dating for marriage and, be in that mindset. But that's the old school way. You get married at 18. At 20, to pursue a livelihood. So it's interesting. According to this, you should be married for a couple of years before you have to pursue a livelihood. I mean, who's going to support you? Maybe your parents for a couple of years, or maybe you are making some money but not a profession. So at 20, you should have a profession. Nowadays when people go to college and grad school, it's usually not till around 25 that but you could still say at 20 you are pursuing a profession if you're in college or in graduate school, so you're working toward it. Okay. 30 is the age of strength, physical strength. You're at the peak of your strength. Some of these are just meant to be descriptive. 40 is the age of understanding. At 40, you have some real life experience and you start understanding things. This is why the tradition says a person should not study Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism, which Madonna is very much into, until they're 40, because mysticism is like the deepest level of things. And don't even think that you're mature enough to understand what the Zohar has to say until you're 40. That's not absolutely binding, but there's a tradition like that, that people wouldn't study it until they're 40. Okay. Just interesting ways these all play out. Going back to the 30, there's a tradition you can't be the high holiday chazan until you're 30 years old and married because you have to have a certain amount of life experience and maturity. So it's interesting to see how these all play out. All right, 40 is understanding. 50 is the age of counsel. You could give advice. What that means is you need 10 years of understanding before you could start giving advice, right? 40 is the age of understanding, and only 50 is the age of advice. So after 10 years of maturity and understanding, then you could actually start giving advice at 50. 60 is you are an elder. It's the age of old age. So old age is a compliment in Judaism. It means a certain maturity and wisdom that you've achieved. Okay. 70 is for ripe old age. So that also is meant to be a compliment. You've achieved really stately sage, wisdom at that age. 80 is the age of strength, gevura. So it's interesting. At 30, the word used was koach, which really means power, physical power. But 80 is the age of gevura, which is a different word. Strength clearly doesn't mean physical. It means a certain strength of character, a supreme dignity. And this is based on a verse explicit in Psalms and Tehillim, that the days of man's years are 70, and if through strength, then 80. King authorship of King David, that 70 is considered to be the minimal amount that you led a long life. Nowadays, thank God, life expectancy is even longer than that. But traditionally, if it's 70, okay, you didn't die young. You should live till at least 70. But if you could make it another decade, past the average lifespan, which was always considered 70, but 80, that's really wow, right? You had a lot of strength to be able to get to that age. But it could also mean strength of character, etc. Based on this, some people have a second bar mitzvah at 83 because it's 13 years after 70, which is the normal lifespan. A lot of clever stuff comes out of this. Okay, and then the last two clauses in the Mishnah. It's going great till now. All these wonderful things to say at birthday parties. And then I always joke that never quote the following two at a birthday party because the Mishnah ends on a very sad note. We'll have to analyze why. It's kind of depressing. 90 is the age to be bent over, and 100 it is as if he died and passed away and disappeared from the world. So I always say at a 90-year-old birthday party or a person's 100th birthday party, don't quote this. That'll be awkward. 90 is just the age to be bent over. It's 100, you might as well already be dead. Well, what a terrible thing to say. Why does the Mishnah say that? I think it's sobering, and this also quotes the commentary. Some of the commentaries point out, so that of Rashi. Rashi says that this is just descriptive of, it's kind of sobering lesson. Don't necessarily be careful what you wish for, right? The Mishnah is only talking about realia, meaning circumstances in the world. Usually, especially back then, if someone made it to 90 and 100, it's not really worth living because they might be going senile, they might be incredibly weak or in a lot of pain. That's how Rashi interprets it. But my understanding based on Rashi is if a person does have their faculties and is not in terrible pain and life is worth living, and they still always remain in the age of Gevura, in the age of that supreme strength that they achieved at 80, and that continues until 120, as long as their faculties are still there. But it's certainly a sobering lesson on, right, at a certain point, we Jews do believe in mortality and moving on to the afterlife, and especially, God forbid, when one is not doing well. But, thank God for modern technology and modern medicine, and we keep davening that lifespans get better and quality of life gets better, and that's been a modern day miracle. Okay, with that, we'll say the prayer following the study of Mishnah. Ana Adonai Malay Rachmim, Asher B'yadcha Nefesh Kol Chai, V'ruach Kol Basar Ish, Yena L'ratzon Lefanecha Torseinu Tfilaseinu, V'avor Nishmos Kol HaAzkaros Shel Halayla. Ugmal Na'im Mem B'chasar Gadol Liftoach Lem Shari Rachmim V'chesed V'shari Gan Eden. Uskabel Osam Ba'avo V'chibo, Shlach Lem Malchecha HaKadoshim HaTaharim L'Alichem L'Shivim Tachas Eitz Chaim. Eitzel Nishmos HaTzadikim VaTzidkanios, Chasidim VaChasidos Lehenos Miziv Shchinoscha. La'aspia Mituvcha Tzafim LaTzadikim. V'aguf Yanuach B'kever B'menucha Nechana B'chedva V'simcha V'shalom K'dechsiv. Yavo Shalom Yanucha Mishkavosam Halech Nechocho. Usiv Yalzu Chasidim B'chavad Yiranu Mishkavosam. Usivim Tishkav Lo Sivchad V'shachavta V'arba Shnasecha. And in English, please, O Hashem, full of mercy, for in your hand is the soul of all the living and the spirit of every human being. May you find favor in our Torah study and prayer for the souls of Goldie Brown, Marilyn Gallus, Esther Levine, Dorothy Organ, Sarah Rashbaum, and Helen Spector, in whose memory we study and pray. Accept them with love and affection, and send them your holy and pure angels to lead to settle under the tree of life near the souls of the righteous, and devout to enjoy the radiance of your presence, to satiate them from your good that is concealed for the righteous. May their body repose in the grave with proper contentment, pleasure, gladness, and peace. As it is written, let him enter in peace, let them rest on their beds. Everyone who has lived in his proper way. As it is written, let the devout exult in glory, let them sing joyously upon their beds. And as it is written, if you lay down, you will not fear. When you lay down, your sleep will be sweet. Amen.